Well, hello and welcome back to Ruby the Elite. It's been a long time. I know I haven't made any videos in, I don't know, 8-9 months. I covered this bike up and kind of went on with life. But this is previously where we left off. We had taken the exhaust gasket out that had pretty much failed us. This was filthy over here with all kinds of grease and nastiness. So we've got a new one that we're going to put in. We're going to go into some other areas of the bike, jump around. This is the exhaust gasket, by the way, that I did buy a Honda part. That's the replacement part number, if you care. So we're going to introduce some budget gadgets today, go over some of the things that I've seen as far as comments on my channel, things that I laugh about, and things that I just ignore. If you've been with me on Ruby the Elite, this channel's been going on for a while. You know I never ask if you wish to be part of it and you like my videos to join. And if you don't like my videos, then go watch something else. There's plenty of content out there for everyone. But let's get started and make up some time on this Elite 125. Well, since we have the exhaust off, let's give it a quick touch up. You know, I'm not partial to any particular kind of paint when I've used barbecue paint, car paint. This is an exhaust paint, VHT. Figure I'd give it a try. Up to 2,000 degrees, we'll see how well it performs. Of course, flat black, but you never know. Some of these work better than others. We're going to give this one a shot and see how it holds up. About $7 I think I paid for the can. Let's move on. Alright, since we already had that flat black out, I'm going to use it on our transmission cover. Give it a nice touch up. But first I need to remove this side rail. Now I've been asked many times, do you need to remove this to get to that? And do you need to remove that to get to this? And my question that I have for you is, do you want to do it the right way or the wrong way? Now taking this rail off does take a few steps, but it makes it easy to get the cover off. I don't try to show you things that make it harder on you. I try to show you the proper way. I guess that's the way I view it. There are some questions I had, like, why do you need to take that swing arm off in order to get to the tire? It's like, I'm not answering questions like that, folks. If you want to take shortcuts and not do it the way I do it, all the power to you. But I'm not going to answer those questions, and that's not what I'm going to share in my videos. So I want to make sure that I say that today, because I've been asked quite a few questions in the past about shortcuts. But first we need to take, for this transmission cover, we need to take these two bolts off. And then we also have a bolt down here. And taking that side rail off just makes it easier. Once we pull this cover off, there is a rubber gasket that does go around the whole perimeter of the cover. Be mindful of how it goes on so you can put it back on. It causes the bike to not make a chattering noise. You know, I saw a few videos where guys are like, what's that noise? It's because they removed the cover and they never put the gasket back on. Just be mindful of how it goes on and off. You can see the drip mark on this though. That's from the spark plug. So we're going to repaint it. No big deal. Just have one screw that we have to remove from here. And then we'll pull the brace and the rubber right off the cover. But let's jump around. All right, we're back in the rear. I'm showing you the brake shoe installation. As you can see, I have both springs on each one of the shoes. This is the easy way to do it. If you try to install that spring on each one of these individually while putting it on, you are just wasting your time. This is definitely the simplest way to do it. So you bend the shoes going around the pin and then around the spreader, and it'll take a little bit of pulling the spring just to get it around. That's why the spring is there. It allows for tension. So just be patient. You will need a little bit of hand strength in order to do this, but eventually it will go on. Beautiful, just like that. And there's a nice close-up. Now these brakes, I don't have to replace them. As you can see, there's lots and lots left on the shoes. I don't even think these have 500 miles on them, but I wanted to show you how they go on. And also, this is the inside on your rim. I just used some 1000 grit sandpaper, went over it real nice. Just makes for a much nicer stop if you clean out any brake dust that was in there. Again, we're cleaning this all up, so just go the extra mile and make sure you got a nice surface. Then we'll go ahead and push the tire back over, and we're good. I used some wheel bearing grease and just put it on the inside of this collar, and I also put it on the shaft for the shock. I must say, I really dislike these shocks. This design by Honda, very poor. This should not be a place for you to mount your shock. It minimizes what you can replace these with. Definitely a negative in my book. But reinstalling them is very easy. Just pull on the shock up a little bit as you install it. No big deal. Now we'll just go ahead and put on our other little collar here, which I did lubricate, and then put on our nut, and it'll be all set. Yeah, I don't know why they did that. I mean, if you wanted to put a nicer set of shocks on this, then you'd have to weld it onto this piece. I mean, that's just stupid. Sorry, Honda. This is one of the things that are a stupid thing that you did that I'd love to change, but there's not a whole lot I can do. So we'll go ahead and put this nut back on, and we'll just have to live with these shocks, I guess. Now we have this other collar that goes over the top, and what's nice about this is that bolt will never back out. It can't with this in its way. And this is actually what your exhaust is going to mount to, along with the two other mounting holes on the other side. Which I do kind of like, because there's no chance of that bolt ever coming off with this in the way. I spick and spanned up the battery box. She looks beautiful, except for this tube is loose. So we're going to go ahead and renew it just by cutting the end off with the old clip. We'll use one of our trusty clips out of our clamp kit we have here. I've used this a million times. Well, it seems like a million times. Just putting the new clip on the tube, and now it'll be nice and tight. Any water gets in this box, it's all going to drain out. Nice and installed. You know, I wanted to point out something if I haven't shown you already. Look at how nice this paint is. This is all original. This frame has never been painted. There's no rust on it. What a beautiful bike this is. It's actually a kind of a shame that it's covered up with panels. Another reason I took the transmission cover off is I wanted to show you under the bell these clutch weights. Look at the bell. Still looks like the day I resurfaced it. I haven't put that many miles on this bike, so that's why it looks as nice as it does. But these clutch weights were renewed by JW Parts Plus. I sent this clutch off to them years ago, and they're still available to do the work. I saw that ad that I posted right there, and they still do the work. You got to send it to Michigan. They put that Kevlar material on. I believe it's Kevlar, and they renew your clutch. You can't buy these clutch weights anymore, so you got to do what you got to do. I'll put the bell back on. I'm not going to show you the variator because it looks like brand new under there. There's really nothing to show. I don't even think those rollers have 300 or 400 miles on them. But I'll go ahead and button this back up, and you can see there's no dust or grease in here. It looks like brand spanking new. And that clutch is probably stronger than it was from Honda. The belt's in perfect shape. Everything looks great under here. No issues. And the transmission cover's got a nice coat of fresh black, flat black paint. It's the way I like it, so that's the way I did it. Now I'll just go ahead and put the two bolts in the middle and then the two bolts along the bottom back on. Now the price may seem a little stiff. I had $125 to resurface, but that includes the shipping And when you don't have any other options, I guess it's worth it to do it. You always could find some used clutch weights, but you never know how many miles they put on them. What a great time for budget gadget number 8. I wanted to share these ceiling lights I recently purchased with you. They came in a 4-pack. They plug into each other. The flaps are directional, so you can point the light wherever you wish. They are pull strings, so they're easy to use. You only need one outlet. Look at how bright it is in the garage. Don't let the sun dictate when you work on your bike. These will allow you to work on it at any time for only $59. Awesome budget gadget. All right, let's jump back to the exhaust gasket. It took me all that time to get it out of the package. I'm getting old. Yeah. Anyways, you can see there's a flat side and there's also a beveled side. So there is a way this is installed. It does not go on either way. Flat side towards your cylinder and the beveled side towards your exhaust. All you got to do is lightly push it in there, and that material that's around it makes for a nice snug fit. Now there was some leaking with this prior. Let's just hope that adding this new one in is going to make it so it doesn't. But I'm not real keen on this design, having it go inside here like this, but we'll see if it helps. I also bought these new exhaust nuts. They're longer, there's more threads on them, and they're a little bit easier to put on than the old ones. Like I've always said, do better for your bike. Now that our exhaust is all painted, it looks pretty good. Almost looks brand new. We're going to go ahead and install it. You want to put on each one of these bolts lightly. It's going to make for a much easier installation. Instead of over tightening each one, tighten them all at the end. And then that way it'll go on easy. Make sure that you use some thread locker as well. This is the kind that I always use, the blue. That way you can get them back off again one day without using heat. And it just keeps them in place. Once you go to install them, you really don't want them to go anywhere, so that thread locker is going to help you. To get the exhaust nut back on, I've got a set of these universal joint sockets. They make so much easier work getting around corners. If you don't have a set, get one. All right, let's change the oil. 0.8 liters or 800 milliliters of oil after draining, and we're going to use 10W40. This is one of the most basic things that you can do for your bike to make the engine last for years, is to change the oil regularly. I'm tilting the bike now, that's why it's all coming out. But once you remove your dipstick, you also have this nut underneath where it has a filter along with a spring. Once you get it off, go ahead and clean the filter out. Just by using a screwdriver here, you'll get it out. Blow it out with some canned air. And then go ahead and reinstall it again. Make sure you put in the filter and then the spring at the widest part of the spring first. This will keep nice tension. And then just go ahead and tighten it back up with your socket. 800 milliliters. You know, I purchased this pitcher a few years ago for like $10 or $12. It's up to $15 now. But it does come in handy. It's great for measuring your GN4 10W40. Beautiful Honda oil going in this beautiful bike. Make sure you only use a quality oil. Alright, we'll go ahead and just pour it on in. Make sure you use a funnel. Otherwise you're going to make a nice mess. Just dump it all in slowly till you get every last drop in there. And you know it's the right amount because you've already drained it. And the service manual says it will hold 800 milliliters. So there's no guessing. Use your service manual, don't guess. Put your dipstick on and you are all set. A little bit of wipe and all cleaned up. Take your pan away. Now you have your oil changed. Like I said, very simple thing to do, and do it on a yearly basis and your engine will always be healthy. It's time for budget gadget number 9. An industrial endoscope. What a cool gadget to have, not just for scooter applications or motorcycle or cars. You could use this for any place that you need to get a camera somewhere where you can't usually get to. That camera's got a light on the end, a 4.3-inch 1080p screen. We're going to give it a good test. Now, this doesn't have all the bells and whistles on it. This is a budget gadget. Remember, it's not going to be something that we're going to spend a ton of money on, but comes with a charging cable. It also comes with 3 different tips. You just pop them on the end, a magnet, or it's got a little mirror if you want to get a side view at the camera, along with a little clip if you want to add something to the end. Of course, your owner's manual. But let's give it a little test. We're going to use it on the Helix. Do a little searching around and I'll show you what it can do. Just give the Helix a quick checkup. Look at how long the line is. You could go anywhere on this bike. And on the end, like I said, it lights up. We'll go ahead and put it in the gas tank, which I did drain at the end of the season. Okay, I'm just checking my work. How does it look in there, folks? It looks pretty clean. Look at your float. Imagine if you dropped a screw in there, you'd be able to put that magnetic tip on and you'd be getting it real quick. And then look, we can go into the engine area as well. That 1080p screen, it just looks beautiful. For $20, folks. I paid 20 and change for this. I think they're at $30 now, but unreal. For $20, that's pennies. What a beautiful device. It doesn't record, but who cares? For 20 bucks, great budget gadget. And if you remember from our Helix restoration videos, I know, made in China, but budget gadgets are not something that gets you from A to B. It's not we're sacrificing Honda quality parts and using these instead. This is just cool items you could buy to help you with your scooter that won't break the bank. Well, after the oil change, I went to start the bike and I'm like, wait a minute. I looked down and this was busted. Our noise suppressor that's on the end of our ignition coil just completely cracked. We could get a new one for $21, but of course, as you see, they're made in Japan. You know, I opted to buy one of these knockoffs. You know, I'm probably going to come back to regret this for $10, but there's not a whole lot to this, so I figured let's give it a shot. Suspend it the same way. It's a little bit longer than the original, but I don't know. We'll see how it works. Alright, just like Mick Jagger said, let's start me up. This is the first start of this bike in a long time. I don't expect it to be perfect. Hopefully just run right with that new ignition coil in there. I know I'm going to come to regret buying that, but we'll see. Well, right now it's at about 2,000, 2,100 down to 1,800 RPM, so we're going to have to adjust it. It's supposed to be at 1,500. It runs really good at like 1,650, 1,700. This is definitely too high, so we'll make adjustments. That'll be in the next video. We also got to do a coolant change and a few other things that we'll pick up on, but at least that's a good sign that that coil works. For how long, I don't know. I may end up buying that part. I lose sleep over using these non-Honda parts. But I went ahead and did some spick and spanning on her, and look at, she just shines. So glossy, beautiful. Inside and out. I almost feel bad that I don't ride it as much as I really need to. It only has 2,075 miles, so I put something like 1,200 miles, 1,300 miles on it. Clock battery needs to be replaced. But just a super nice bike. It's just a shame that she doesn't get ridden. She's just, I don't know, not fast enough, and You really can't take her around my house except for in some subdivisions, and you know, there's a lot of high mile per hour places here. But let's look at something else. This is my Grace Jones 1985 original poster. It's got an Elite 150 Deluxe. I know you guys have probably seen this poster hanging on my wall. Right there it says Grace Jones, Los Angeles, 1985. Pretty cool having that original poster. But we have another part 3 coming up soon. I'll see y'all for that. Shouldn't be too long.